After running for 27 years, I've been injured so many times that I basically just have a protocol now for what to do to get back to running healthy. I have seen countless physical therapists. I've been to the trainer's PT clinic when I was in college all the time. And what I want to do in this video is share a testing approach so that you can get back to running in a more methodical, productive way. Because I have been coaching runners for 15 years now, and it's so interesting seeing the different approaches runners have when they're experiencing a niggle or an injury. And if we took this testing approach, this much more methodical approach to increasing our mileage, to getting our body back into the normal swing of training, you are going to be much more likely to get back to training without that injury flaring up again. So let's dive into this. Now, I should add that this approach was learned after seeing probably close to 10 physical therapists over the first 8 to 10 years of my running career and experience with pretty much every running injury there is. I've had IT band syndrome, I have had Achilles tendinopathy, plantar fasciitis, SI joint strains, I have strained pretty much every muscle there is. I've had IT band syndrome, I think I mentioned that, but it's still traumatic in my brain. So after all of this experience, I've recognized that you can't just take some time off and then get back into your normal workload. And depending on the severity of your injury, we have to take this more methodical approach really conservatively. So let's get into this idea of testing our way back into normal training. So this idea that we should test our way back to our normal workload is based on the idea that the load that your body is experiencing when you're running is one of the more important ways of determining how much stress you're experiencing. And when we talk about load, we're really talking about stress levels. We're talking about your training load, your workload, basically how much physiological stress that your body is under when you're training. So let's say you're coming back from an Achilles injury, maybe a foot or IT band syndrome injury. The first thing that we're going to test is whether or not you can run without any pain. So I like to call this run a diagnostic run. We are not trying to run a certain pace. We are not really even trying to hit a certain number of miles or kilometers for this run. Instead, we are simply seeing how our body responds to running. Much like your first run after a marathon, after about a week off or so, the first run back is just designed to see how you feel. It's just to diagnose any potential issues. Same thing when we're getting back into running. Number one, let's test how our body responds to a very short, very easy run. Now, running itself is obviously the most specific type of load that you can put on your body, and it is the type of load that likely contributed to your running injury. And so when you figure out that, running injuries are repetitive stress injuries, it's literally the act of running that is getting us injured. That's why we have to work on our mobility. That's why we have to get stronger. That's why we have to be really careful with increasing the training load that we're experiencing. So the first run back is probably the riskiest time for you because you're directly experiencing the very type of load that got you injured in the first place. Now, this is actually a really great time to use a product like Lever. They're supporting our podcast and our YouTube channel. And if you go to levermovement.com, you can get 20% off any one of their products with code STRENGTH20. Now, Lever is a very unique product because number one, it's pretty simple. You can attach it to any treadmill, you hook into it in about 30 seconds, and you basically remove some of your body weight so that you reduce the load on your muscles, your tendons, your joints, your ligaments, all your connective tissues, so that when you do get back into running, you can actually go for a run with reduced load. It's deceptively simple how this works. This is 7-minute mile pace, and it feels more like 8:30 pace. Crazy.
What pace are you running right now?
6:30 mile pace.
6:30?
I didn't think at 41 I would ever see 6:30 pace again, but
Thanks to Lever.
It's one of the few ways that you can actually run and not experience normal loads that you're going to experience while running. So big thanks to Lever for supporting the channel. Go to levermovement.com and use code STRENGTH20 with a capital S to get 20% off any one of their Lever systems. Okay, continuing on our testing approach to getting you back to running healthy and with as few flare-ups as possible, the next thing that we're gonna focus on is doing that same short, easy run 2 days in a row. Can your body handle the load of running twice in a row? Even if the pace is very slow, even if the distance of your run is very short, can you handle that? So we're testing another increment of difficulty here, back-to-back runs. After you've tested back-to-back runs, the next thing we want to test is a slightly longer run. We're just increasing the distance, maybe by 5, 10, or 15 minutes, and we're basically now testing our body's ability to experience the same load for a little bit longer. So it's not really a big stretch. But the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to test the easiest way to run fast, strides. Now, strides are pretty versatile. You can run them almost at 100% max intensity. Sometimes you can run them at 100% max speed. But when we're testing our way back to fitness, back to running healthy, let's just do slightly easier strides. Let's maybe speed up to 5K pace on the first session just to kind of test our body's ability to handle a higher mechanical load. This isn't going to test your physiological ability to handle a higher load with hard running because strides aren't really hard. Yes, they're fast, and that's going to test the mechanical stress of your running. So you're going to experience more impact, you're going to experience higher loads on your muscles, you're going to be recruiting more muscle fibers and opening up into a bigger range of motion, but you're not going to be experiencing a really high heart rate for an extended period of time, increasing lactate levels, or anything that might disrupt your body's internal physiology. We're just testing the mechanical nature of running fast with strides. As we keep testing more and more difficult things, the next thing that we're going to test is a long run. Now, maybe this long run is a little bit shorter than the long run that you have been used to, just because we don't want to overly stress your body. So let's just test a run that might be 20 to 30% longer than the last longest run you've done in this testing approach, but still isn't as long as the long run you were used to before you got injured. So if you're going on all these test runs and you find out that, okay, I'm running 3 to 4 miles, everything feels good, I've run 2 days in a row, I've done strides, I pushed it up to a 4-mile run after an initial just 20-minute jog. The next thing to do is maybe go out for 7 miles. That sounds pretty reasonable to me. And you're testing your ability to do what you have been doing for an additional few miles. And then finally, the last thing that we can test, the hardest thing that we can test, this is where you also need to be quite conservative, and it might be really helpful to use a product like Lever so you can experience some of the internal physiological stress of a workout without nearly as much impact is a harder workout where you are going to try to run faster, try to experience some of the difficulty of running fast and hard, but maybe we do it on a treadmill so that you can stop at any moment. Maybe the volume of the workout is cut a little bit so that you're not experiencing that stress for a really long time. And once you've tested all of these individual things, so you can see how you've gradually moved up the ladder of difficulty to finally test a harder workout. Arguably, the hardest thing we do as runners, also the thing that's most likely to get you injured, and that's why we test it last. After any injury, the goal here is to gradually increase the level of stress that you're experiencing, the load that you're experiencing, so that eventually you can get back up to your normal training load without any recurrence of your injury, without any other additional niggles. And so as you're getting back into this testing methodical approach to your return to running, just remember that you shouldn't run through every type of pain, but there are some types of discomfort that you can run through. So don't take this, all or nothing, very black and white approach to running through a discomfort. Use these 3 rules. Rule number 1, if it gets better as you run, that's generally a good sign. So whatever discomfort you might be experiencing, if it feels a little better as you keep running, that's a really great sign. Another really good sign is that you can run with your normal form. In other words, you're not changing your form to accommodate the injury. This is where a lot of runners will develop new injuries or poor movement patterns because they're trying to accommodate their injury and they're basically giving themselves a little bit of a limp. They're running in a strange way. This is not something that we should ever do. So if you can run without changing your form, that is a really good sign. And then finally, just the type of pain is really important. So if your pain is dull, it's achy, it's a little bit more of a soreness as opposed to a sharp, stabbing, or intense pain, you're probably not doing additional damage with that injury. So if those 3 rules can be followed, you can probably continue on with your run. I'd be a little hesitant about any kind of a harder workout, but generally speaking, you can keep running as long as those 3 conditions are met. So I really hope you're not injured, but if you are getting back into running, use this very patient, methodical approach to get you back to running. Now, if you are really seriously injured, of course, go see a physical therapist, but I do think a lot of runners need to learn how to self-treat their injuries. So if you have a niggle, you probably shouldn't go to the physical therapist for every little niggle, ache, or pain that we have because we'd probably live there, and most of us probably can't afford that. So let's try to self-treat a lot of our minor injuries, and by using this kind of an approach, you're gonna be able to get back on the road faster. So here's to your health, here's to running strong, and a big thanks to Lever for their support of our YouTube channel. If you want to check out their really innovative products, they are used by high-level runners all around the world. You probably have seen some pro runners using Lever in some of their content and some of their training videos. It's a very effective way of reducing the load of your running so that you can return to running after an injury more effectively, or you can just increase your workload even more with less of the risk. So big thanks to Lever. You can go to levermovement.com and use code STRENGTH20 to get 20% off any of their systems.